Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into a seriously fascinating piece of economic history and looking at how it actually serves as a blueprint for the future. We're unpacking a short but incredibly powerful essay by Nigerian author Oluyomi Oladevid. It's called Reverse Engineering and the Made in Asia Dream. In it, she lays out this profound vision for global development. Specifically, she focuses on how Asia's economic trajectory isn't just history, it's a direct roadmap for African manufacturing today. She brings a really compelling personal perspective to these massive global shifts, and her insights give us incredible clarity on how developing nations can transform into absolute global powerhouses.
To really understand where she's going with this vision, we kind of have to start by looking backward, and she hooks us right away with a very relatable childhood memory. As she writes here, during her early years, she learned to associate the Made in Taiwan label with goods that were, well, considered below the acceptable standard. If you think back a few decades, this was a surprisingly common global perception. Products from emerging Asian markets were often just dismissed as cheap or inferior to Western alternatives. She's using her own early biases here to highlight the starting point that many of these now dominant economies actually had to overcome.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer scale of the economic pivot that happened. I mean, think about it. In the past, exactly as she noted, these products were tagged as inferior. But today, it's practically a given that China and neighboring Asian countries are the ultimate go-to destinations for skilled labor and complex manufacturing solutions. They literally flip the script. So the massive question she poses to us is, how? How exactly did they pull off this massive shift from being totally dismissed to being absolutely essential to the global supply chain?
Okay, let's dive into this because she identifies a very specific mechanism that drove this whole transformation. The real engine of this growth was largely something called reverse engineering. She defines it in her article as the process of imitating and replicating technology standards that were originally created by industrialized countries. So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel from scratch, right, many Asian firms started out by taking the existing wheel, studying exactly how it ticked, copying it, and eventually totally mastering its production. It was just a highly pragmatic, practical approach to catching up technologically.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that reverse engineering alone just wasn't enough. She actually breaks down three complementary forces that allowed these firms to truly adapt and scale up. First, they capitalized on cheaper location costs, giving them this undeniable competitive edge in pricing. Second, they benefited from enabling policy environments. Basically, their governments actively set up the rules and structures to support this industrial boom. And third, she highlights the presence of what she calls change vanguards in local industry. These were the aggressive, forward-looking local entrepreneurs pushing the boundaries on the ground. By mixing those three elements with reverse engineering, they birthed some of the most highly competitive and adaptive products on the global market.
But hey, this isn't just a history lesson on Asia. She uses this historical blueprint to point directly toward latecomer African manufacturing. She looks at that Made in Asia dream and sees a totally direct, actionable parallel for the African continent. Her argument is super clear. If Asia could start from a place of being tagged as inferior and systematically rise to global dominance through strategic replication, smart policy, and local vanguards, well, she argues that Africa is perfectly positioned to do the exact same thing today.
Let's see how this builds into her specific blueprint for Africa's success. She lays out four absolutely critical developmental steps. Number one, she states that Africa needs enabling infrastructure. We're talking the physical roads, the power grids, the ports, the actual hardware for trade. Number two is structure, meaning the formal economic and political frameworks that guide business. Third is a really cool term she uses, infrastructure. This refers to the internal organizational systems, capabilities, and operational efficiencies inside the companies themselves. And finally, culture, a shared societal mindset that's totally geared toward productivity and growth. She emphasizes that these four pillars have to be built on a foundation of sheer enterprise and human rights-based initiative, all laced with strong political will. If African nations can align these elements, just like Asian nations did decades ago, she believes Africa can become the next global go-to for planetary solutions. It's a full blueprint for moving from imitation to ultimate innovation.
So the crucial point is her unshakable conviction in this future, which culminates in this super passionate call to action. She tells her readers directly, and I quote, "Choose to say yes to Nigeria and Africa now. All naysayers on the planet will soon be here to take notes." I just love that. She's fully confident that the foundational pieces are there, the historical precedent is proven, and the momentum is absolutely building. She's urging global investors, local leaders, and really everyday citizens to recognize this potential before it fully materializes. She's basically warning the skeptics that they are soon going to be studying Africa's success the exact same way we currently study Asia's.
Which leaves us with this final, profound question to consider based on her analysis.
Is Africa poised to become the planet's next great manufacturing powerhouse? Oluyomi Oladavid firmly believes the answer is yes, provided the continent can learn from the reverse engineering successes of the past and build that necessary infrastructure and culture for the future. Her insights really challenge us to look past current global perceptions and recognize the undeniable patterns of economic history. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.